Hi, I'm Dr. Quincee Gideon. I'm a clinical psychologist and I help people get out of cults. Today we're going to talk about the 12 tribes. This is one that has recently made news. They're big in Colorado and they own a series of restaurants called the Yellow Deli and a couple of other restaurants. Those restaurants, some of them were destroyed in a big wildfire that happened in Colorado, which is what brought all of this to the news folks' attention. So inside of the 12 tribes, it's a little bit gnarly. There's about 3,000 members. It's been around since the 1950s. And we're just starting to learn a lot about the 12 tribes because of the recent wildfire. Some of the ex-members started coming out and talking about their experiences of being in the cult of 12 tribes. Now, there's two big communal living spaces. Both of them are in Colorado, but they do function in other parts of the United States, own businesses, LLCs, all of that good stuff. Now, this is really important to understand because one of the main features of this cult is that they require that you hand over all of your possessions, sign over things like property and money and all other possessions to the different businesses that the cult runs. And this is a really big red flag for cult behavior. So if you're being recruited by any sort of group that's making big, grandiose promises, it's a really big red flag when they say you have to sign over everything that you own, otherwise you won't be blessed. And this is part of the huge push in 12 tribes. They essentially tell you that God will bless you in accordance to how much you give to the cult whenever you join. So if you sign over everything, 100%, God is going to bless you 100%. If you only sign over 50% of your assets and your possessions, then God is only going to bless you 50% of the time. Okay, some other cult features that have come up in the ex-members talking about their experience. Most of the time, labor is unpaid. So there's this forced labor into these businesses like the Yellow Deli and other businesses that are owned by the 12 tribes. You have to work for free. And there's even been some complaints of child labor. There's been some investigations into child labor where young members of the 12 tribes are forced to work at really young ages without compensation for unending amounts of hours. There's also a big belief in the 12 tribes that the number of hours that you work and how many days a week that you work is consistent with how much God will bless you. So they hold a Sabbath on Saturdays, but the leader is known for saying God will understand if we break Sabbath to work for a good cause, essentially to further the wealth or whatever, the good standing of the 12 tribes. They require homeschooling of their children because we wouldn't want those kids to have any access to education that might teach them something different than what the 12 tribes wants them to learn. And that is a huge feature of cults that we really have to look out for. Another feature is that they use the us versus them mentality. This happens a lot in cults, but in the 12 tribes, what typically happens is they use things like racism, homophobia, and misogyny to essentially say we are better than them, those outsiders. There's been a previous member of this cult that is a Black man, and he has come out and talked a lot about his experiences of experiencing some of the theology that was taught to him well after he had been involved in this group for years and years. So he's already sunk all of his time, energy, assets into this group. And then a few years in, he learned some really heinous beliefs that they have about Black and brown people, which obviously was upsetting, but he was already stuck in some ways. And this is really important to remember about cults. They'll draw you in, they'll get you stuck. And when you sign over your assets, you're going to have a hard time leaving. They also have a charismatic authoritarian leader. Again, this is a big cult feature. Those engaging, charismatic leaders that make big promises and they're wordsmiths. They have good understanding of language and how to draw people in. Cult feature. They also are not shy about their active recruitment strategies. So they don't even use things like We just want people to feel better. We just want them to feel safe, which is what other cults might use. The leader of this cult will actively say, we recruit. This is a red flag. I'm glad that he's actually saying what they are doing by using the word recruitment, but it also makes it a little bit tricky because that just by saying the truth of what you're actually doing does not make it any less cult-like. Okay, 2 other cult features in the 12 tribes is number 1, all or nothing thinking. From the very beginning of joining this cult, you were taught that if you are not all in, then you're out. If you don't give up everything, then God will not bless you at all. If you are not full tilt into this group, you move in, you work in their businesses, you give up everything, all family that meant anything to you previously. If you don't do any of those things, then you don't get to be a part of it. So that all or nothing thinking is a big cult feature that we usually look for. And lastly, control and coercion. If you are to make a decision that's different than how everyone else is functioning in that group, it is not uncommon for that group to tell you that you are doing something wrong and then start coercing you into doing something that they want you to do. Big red flag. Okay. That's the 12 tribes. There's lots more that we could jump into, but that's the skinny on how they function. And I hope that we're learning something along the way about cult features, what to look for, red flags, when to pick up and run and get out of there. 12 tribes, culty as shit.